It's Katie.
And Claire, and this week we have a special treat for you. We've dug up Katie's resumes from starting back in 5th grade, which is insane. What 5th grader has a resume? But stay tuned for this one. It's going to be a good one.
Corporate crash out. Will you cash in or crash out?
So before we get into resume content, Katie, I'm just curious, in what world is a 5th grader needing to have a resume?
You know, Claire, I was a really wannabe, I think, actor at that point. I really wanted to get into acting, and my school kept putting me into bands, and I really hated bands, but it's because I used to play the recorder, and then my sister was like, oh, you should play the flute, because she played the flute. And then I was like, built this whole like little resume to try to get out of bands, but kept getting stuck there year after year. But finally in 8th grade, I was able to do acting. So that was super cool. And then I did it in 9th and 10th grade too, which my friend made fun of me for, but that's okay.
Katie's first resume secured her big break in acting, which I have to know, is this like a real TV show or is this like a school play?
For which?
For your acting career.
Like on my resume or what I did?
No, I'm saying like you made your resume. I have it here actually. Let me just, since this is an audio show, let me give a brief synopsis of this resume. First of all, at the top we have Katie, her email, pretty standard resume. Then we have height, 5'6", impressive for your age, honestly. Hair, light brown, eyes, hazel.
Which I wanted it to be hazel. Let's start there, but they're really brown. So,
you know, in acting, anything's possible. You could get the colored contacts, you know?
Yeah.
She has four different subheaders, which, you know, that's pretty standard resume behavior. So she has educational theater. She was in the cheese play playing feta. Also, can we talk about how the middle column is very misaligned?
Okay, I'm sorry. I was in 5th grade. What do you expect, Claire? Like, I barely knew how to type in 5th grade, so...
Instead of musical experience, we have arts experiences, applied lessons, recital. We have all sorts of band content. Then we have training, voice lessons, flute lessons, special talents. Whoa. Swimming.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you could have got a part on like a swim team movie. I don't know.
I could have literally played Michael Phelps in like a documentary, but you know, guess it's just a missed opportunity. Oh well.
Wasn't this like before he was big? If you were 5, I don't even know if he had been to the Olympics yet.
5th grade, not 5. You think I was 5'6" when I was 5?
Shit.
That would be so concerning.
I really was thinking that this whole time. I'm so dumb sometimes. Okay. Can we talk about what is formal dancing? Is that not ballroom?
Yeah, so I had to do cotillion in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so I was like, yeah, I know how to do formal dancing. And, you know, not every 5th or 6th grader can do that. So I guess maybe this was in 7th grade then, if I said I did formal dancing.
Okay, are y'all ready for the highlight of this resume? The special talent. Whistling.
You have to really like differentiate yourself when you act, okay? And you just have to put all the talents, you know, you have on there. I really didn't have a ton of talents at the time, and this is kind of true of your actual resume too. You just got to throw on what you can do, you know? Like if you can do it somewhat well, put it on there, you know?
You know, I've never made an acting resume before, but is this normal behavior for Atlanta since they're like a little bit of a film hotspot? Are a lot of people extras?
Yeah, so like a ton of people are extras, and I really wanted to be an extra in a few things, and I did end up being an extra, but yeah, we had to make a portfolio for acting class, and then we also had to like submit headshots and stuff like that, in a full body like picture, so that was kind of cool.
And you made it to be an extra in what show?
Insatiable. It's like with Debbie Ryan.
Wait, I've seen that.
Yeah, I don't know where
God.
I am. I totally forget, but I'm one of the goth high school characters in the background. And the guy at my table got to say a line, and I was so jealous because they just like randomly picked one of us to yell something out.
I'm upset. I need to be in like major motion picture before I die.
I know, me too. We should work on that, Claire.
Okay, so right now they're filming 911 Nashville, okay? And so I didn't even know they were doing this, and I'm sitting at my desk, blah, 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 blah. Office manager sends out a company-wide email and says, hey, at 7 p.m. tonight in front of the office building, they're going to be filming 911 Nashville. There's going to be lots of fire trucks and a cop car, and they're like, all gonna have their sirens on, don't be alarmed.
Wait, your accounting manager said this?
My office manager like sent this out like company-wide email blast. This is like 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, shit, should I stay? And when they come, just like go running outside screaming, like, is this my time?
Yes.
Is this my big break? Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. All I could think about that whole day was like, is anyone from the office going to stay and try to be on this show?
You know, that's so interesting because I always wondered how they film those shows with the offices. You know what I'm talking about? Like, do they rent out an empty office building to just film outside of? Or I guess they just use a real one, but at night after hours.
Well, it was technically on the intersection by our office.
Okay. So slightly less cool. You can't show the movie and be like, that's where I work, Dad, you know? But
like, maybe. I could maybe watch the TV show and be like, hey, that's my office. But I don't know. Anyways.
Can you imagine if you were just leaning out the window while they like had the movie and you're like, that's me all the way up there?
They were like filming a fake car crash, apparently.
Oh. Okay, well, we should get to the actual
Really
resumes.
derailed.
I know, we really derailed. Okay, so back to roasting. I know we roasted my, 5th grade acting resume, but let's roast my high school resume since this is also what I applied to my first internship with in high school, my senior year, and college. Claire's never seen this before. I just want to preface this. This is like a blind review and roast from Claire. So I want to hear what you think.
My initial thought is, why do we have 3 pages as a senior in high school? This is too long.
Okay, Claire, I also didn't know that it was supposed to be really short, and I kind of wanted to write everything on there. But yes, that is a great point for everyone in college, and if you are in high school applying to jobs, your resume should be no longer than one side of a page. So, pretty standard.
My second observation, I sent this as a roast, is why the fuck does anyone care if you're the most improved award on your swim team in 9th grade?
Actually, Claire, it was really hard to get that award. I had to go to a lot of hours of practice and whatever. I don't really care. So I actually did have to I wanted to go to camp. So we had this winter camp and you would be there like all day and would swim from 8 in the morning to like 3 p.m. And it was actually insane. It was so hard. I mean, you swam miles and miles and it was just like insane. So I did that, which I don't know why I did. But I will be the devil's advocate. I do think it is sometimes helpful when somebody wins an award to say, obviously you don't have to say like what you did to get it, but I think selected out of blank people, because sometimes I have no idea how competitive awards are. And then like, if somebody says, oh, well, there were 10,000 applicants or 10,000 submissions for this one award, I feel like it carries a little bit more weight.
I do agree with that. And I do think that one other thing I've seen people do is like, if you got the John Smith Award, don't just put John Smith Award and expect people to know what that is. I've seen people put like John Smith Award and they'll be like, awarded for outstanding contributions to the computer science community or something like that. And then they'll put like, 1,000 applicants or whatever. And I think that that's important because otherwise it means nothing. And I'm just going to look right over it if I was reading your resume.
Yeah, I agree. And like the other thing too is I also want to point out, I did my achievements in high school at the beginning. You really want to do that at the end. What's more important is obviously your education first, your work experience, and then you can kind of have the achievements and interests section. But anyways, we'll keep going.
One thing that your education section is lacking is your GPA. You put your scholars list and other stuff in your achievements, but I'm really needing that GPA at the top.
That's fair. It was confusing how it works because they wouldn't tell us our rank or kind of our GPA finalized until the very end. So it was always kind of like we never really knew, but that's a good point. normally you would want your GPA or rank if your school does rank in like a master's program or something.
Volunteering experience, very nice. I do think like volunteer experience can say a lot about someone, especially if like you're just starting out and don't have a lot of work experience. I think that's something super valid to put on there.
Yeah, I agree, especially when you get some more kind of professional resumes and then you can put it in the leadership and activities section. I think like that's a good section to put that in. But anyways.
Okay, so then we move into the interest in activities. Katie has a lot going on here. And I will say that nothing on this resume is lacking a description. She is doing the most, bending over backwards to sell herself. She is really working hard here. The formatting is just, wow, a lot to unpack.
We can move on to my current resume now if we're done roasting the other one.
Do you want to talk about the interest and activities section? Because, okay, I have this line at the bottom of my resume. I've had different people tell me different things about this line. Like at the very bottom of my resume, I have interests, entrepreneurship, small business, cooking, travel, and piano.
PA is one of your interests, Claire.
Oh, I missed that. CPA. Oh, that was because, yeah. I mean, that makes sense in my industry, but now it doesn't. I can remove it because I don't need that anymore. But I've had so many interviews, like, they'll be like, yeah, your resume looks great. I also like to do blah, blah, blah at the bottom. One time I had rock climbing down there, even though, like, I had only been rock climbing, like, 5 times. And people were really into talking about that one. But so I've had that reaction, and then I've had my sister like look at my resume and be like, you look like a little kid with this. What is this? Why is this on your resume?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like really dependent on what you're kind of going for. I think in school sometimes they told us, okay, well, if you do have interests, it's kind of cool for an interviewer to look at that and kind of connect with you on a little bit of more personal level. Like it makes you stand out a little bit if they find some common ground with you. But I do also think that I don't know, some people aren't as into, the interest section and will kind of just skip over that or think it's unnecessary.
I think it's super fun. If I was an interviewer, I want to see people's interests. Like, how do you be relatable on a piece of paper? This is the only thing I can think of, to be honest.
I think back to kind of the basics. So we talked about having like the basic sections, education, professional experience, leadership and activities, and skills and interests. But Claire, I'm going to ask you, one of the first things I always think about is under your education section, at what point do you leave off the GPA? Like if, for some reason you bombed a semester or something like that, some people will say if you have a GPA under 3.0 to just leave it off the resume. Some people say leave it on. What's your personal take?
Yeah. I think that, like, if you could still make the resume look full, I think you kind of, like, have to play with it. So it's, like, not obvious that you're leaving off the GPA. And, like, maybe if, like, you had some good semesters, you could, like, leave Dean's List on and, like, not have the GPA or something like that to show that you're still, like, being successful in your studies. But I do think that I've never heard that. That's never been an issue for me, like, being below 3. But I guess, like, if I saw someone's resume and it was, like, below a 3, I'd be a little concerned, so.
Yeah, and I also think if they really want your GPA, they usually have a spot for it on Workday anyway when you're applying. But, yeah, I don't know. That's just something to consider if you are worried about your GPA. Maybe leave it off if it's under 3.0, unless, you are doing a really hard major and that's more typical for your field.
Yeah. The other thing that I found too is like your freshman year in college, like you really need to drop the high school immediately. As soon as you're like accepted to college, like that's all I really care about.
I would say like unless your college grade is really bad the first semester or something and you did really, really well in high school, I think that can kind of like supplement it a little bit. But yeah, I would say like once you get to probably like sophomore year at least, right, to drop it. But yeah.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
One of the other things I really like doing, so under my section, is for education. I'm not sure if you did this too, Claire, but maybe it's not as common in like accounting because it's pretty straightforward, like what classes you have to take. But since my master's degree is in stats, it's a little bit more ambiguous what kind of stats courses you're interested in and want to take. So I list some of those out. Like I took natural language processing and machine learning and time series analysis. And so I put those in there just in case a job specifically requires some of those things.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like very industry specific. Like there's certain majors like mechanical engineering. It's like pretty standard what you're going to take.
Yeah.
Accounting, we have to all take pretty much the same shit. So I think that that's like super specific to industry, but like definitely if it's to your benefit to be like to really kind of narrow down like your candidacy for a job and like show that you're really relevant, I think that's like a really good thing to have.
Yeah, I agree. One of the other things I wanted to talk about was overall, I think when you look at your resume, it should be consistent with your LinkedIn. And I just think that the titles should be the same. You know, if you were an analytics intern, then make sure it says analytics intern on your LinkedIn. If you said you started in May for your internship, also make sure that's represented on your LinkedIn. I just think you go through a lot of periods of adjustments and sometimes their start date changes. But I think when you do have discrepancies on your LinkedIn and resume, it can look kind of confusing and like you don't really know what's going on and aren't really organized. But that being said, like your resume and LinkedIn are two separate entities. They do not need to be, 100% copies of each other, but I think they should at least be consistent with each other.
100%. And one thing is that I think is a really big deal these days is putting your LinkedIn handle at the top of your resume instead of like, I don't even know, instead of something, but like you should have your phone number, your name, your email, and your LinkedIn handle because, obviously your resume doesn't have a picture of you on it. So you need to put it on there because it's kind of hard to guess.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to say about that is I noticed that neither of us put our address on our resume. That used to be a very standard practice back when you had to like mail things, but now it's definitely not as the case. If you really wanted to, if you were applying to a specific city, I mean, you could put like this city, but I personally wouldn't put my address on there just because it's not necessary. What's your take on that, Claire?
100%. I think that's a thing of the past. Like, who cares where your address is? Like, you're not trying to mail this in. You're not going to try to get mail from these companies. They're going to email you or call you. But I do think having the phone number on there is top tier. Like, that's a must. I've seen people that just have, like, their email, and I'm like, go ahead and put that phone number on there.
Yeah. And then do you do your personal email or your school email?
Personal. Everything for my job goes to my personal because I don't know. I like to separate that a little bit, but I think that's like definitely a personal preference.
Yeah. I mean, I do usually my school email. I mean, I put both emails on there when I apply so they can like reach out to either, but I do my school email just because I feel like I have like a signature on my school email. I don't know. For me,
Queen, I can show you how to put that on your Gmail.
No, I know how to put it on there. I'm just lazy and I haven't done it yet. So I just have everything sent to my school email. And then I remember to I constantly look at my school email. So if anything ever pops up and they send it to me, I'll be sure to make sure I look at that.
This is literally exactly what I was going to say is I think at the end of the day, just put the email that you're actually going to check.
Yeah.
Because if an employer emails you back these days, you have to immediately respond because they're out here ghosting everyone. So
yeah. For real.
One thing I'm seeing on your resume, is it normal when you work for a publicly traded company to put their ticker? I've never worked for a publicly traded company, so I've just never seen that.
Okay, so I started doing this just because I thought it was kind of fun. On LinkedIn, I noticed that some companies, when you put in their name, their company name, it has a ticker next to it. I think this was especially important for me when I worked at a few companies that were publicly traded, but people didn't know of them as well. They weren't, top Fortune 100 companies or something like that. So I would put the ticker there just so people knew that it was an actual company and that it was public. I think I was also trying to get into the tech space a little bit more. So I felt like this might have been a little bit more important to just make sure that people really took it seriously, but I think it's totally optional.
No, I think it's fun. I like it. I just noticed something about your resume, though. You're in big trouble, Katie.
What?
There's something missing on this resume.
What? I ran out of room, can you tell?
You're just so accomplished. You ran out of room. No, what's missing?
Are you going to say my capital? No, I don't know.
Yes! Your sorority! You have no idea how... No, I'm not even shitting you
Claire.
how many people are like, get so excited when they realize I was in a sorority.
Okay, maybe I'll put that under the clubs and involvements. I used to have that under leadership and activities, but then I was like, well, since I'm trying to get into more statistics in a finance role, I used to be, you know, VPF of my sorority, which is like treasurer. But then I was also like a TA for a statistics class. I really only had the room to put one of them. And I was like, well, since I'm trying to get into statistics, I'm going to lean towards that. But that is a fair point.
What if a KD is interviewing you by chance? You know how many points that gives you? I'm fired up about this one. I'm going to riot.
Yeah, I think it also depends like where you work and the kind of culture that's there. Right now at my current place of work, I don't think there's a ton of fraternity sorority culture, but you know,
it's too bad. My dream is like just a room full of frat boys and sorority girls just crunching numbers all day.
Okay. But yeah, maybe I'll add that back in because that is a good point. It is something that, you know, your interviewer can connect with you on.
Do you think that the Coldplay couple, do you think they were in a frat and a sorority?
I never know with the tech guys, you know. I feel like they came out of college pretty nerdy, weren't really in a frat, and then that's kind of why they act the way they do later in life, you know?
It's like all of a sudden they have money and they kind of turn into a DILF, and then they're like, what do I do with this? I'll sleep with the head of HR. On the girl who cheated's resume, can bag any CEO.
Special skills.
Special skills, sleeping with CEOs.
Okay, Claire, we have to stop. You've only really been interested in accounting, right? You haven't really been interested in other, like, functions, or...
I've had interest in other functions. This is really funny. I one time interviewed for an HR job. Oh my gosh, this is the worst resume story ever, actually.
Claire, I cannot imagine you being an HR job. You would lose it in like 2 days.
No, I would be the worst HR person ever. If someone came up to me with a problem, I'd be like, okay, grow up. I'm busy. I don't know what you want me to do about this. So yeah, I thought I wanted this HR internship because for a minute I was like, maybe I'd be good at that. I don't know what delusional drink I was drinking, but not the right one. So I go to this company near... I don't even remember the name of the company. It was an investment company, but I was obviously interviewing for an HR position. And I meet with the head of HR. She's really nice, but I walk into her office and my resume is on her table and it's marked up. Like there's circles and lines and like yes. And it was really sweet of her. She was like, hey, I think your experiences are great, but I found a couple things wrong with your resume and I just wanted to like point them out to you. Like this word is spelled wrong. And
no.
And she was like, and like you're missing like a comma here. Like it was like very technical grammar stuff. And she had like marked up my resume and then she like gave it back to me. And she was like, we'll be in touch, whatever. And I walked out of there. I was like, fuck, I'm so stupid. I didn't even like check to make sure all my words were spelled right. But
yeah.
I mean, like the interview went well. Like obviously like I could talk to her in person. Like she was nice. She was personable. She gave me an office tour. Like she was definitely like interested in me. And so, but also she's in HR, so she could have been playing me. I don't know. So I leave. I follow up on the interview, all the good things. It's not a week later. The woman like left the company and it was like a whole ordeal. Like she like dramatically left. They eliminated the position. They completely restructured. It was a whole thing. Like a whole. No. So obviously I didn't end up with the internship, which that was such a blessing in disguise. But I'll never forget like walking in there. It's like one of my first interviews ever. Like this had to have been like freshman or sophomore year of college. And my resume is like all marked up on her desk. It's like,
that's
fuck.
So stressful. I've never had anyone mark up my resume. I feel like that would just
It was stressful, but also it's like, I appreciate the feedback. Like, low-key, like,
Yeah.
And she was so kind about it, too. She was like, I know, like, you're in college and, like, you're just, like, looking for internships and stuff, but, like, it's important that we all give each other professional feedback. And I was like, okay, like, thank you so much. Like, this is awkward, but, like, I guess it was kind of nice, but in a cutthroat way.
Yeah. Well, I had Grammarly when I started doing resumes and stuff, so that was nice. And then, like, now with chat, I feel like it's so much easier to make sure everything just seems very seamless and is put together, and things like that. I mean, like,
I had Grammarly. That wasn't the issue. I don't know.
That's not good.
I don't know what I was doing. I definitely read the resume like a million times too. So I think, honestly, you know what the story boils down to is that you need to always have someone else read your resume.
That's true. Even if it's just a friend or, just a friend who's also kind of applying to the same industry or somebody who's in that industry and can kind of give you some good feedback. I think that is really, really helpful to have. Yeah. 100%. So
you could read the same thing a million times, just miss something because it's right in front of your face. So I think it's super important to not only self-review.
No, I totally agree. And like, speaking of chat, I honestly, like, if I don't know how to word something, or if I don't know, a lot of people use, and this is very common, to use verbs to start out, right? Like your bullet points, because you just want to get straight into the meat of the resume. You don't want to really use like a bunch of nouns at the beginning. People kind of already know what you're talking about. And just to save space, just start with a verb. And I think that's really helpful for chat to just give you some ideas. You know, you submit like, oh, here's what I'm thinking of saying. How can I make this better? And have it like list 10 ways that you could also word it. And I think picking the one you feel like fits best really works well. The other thing I think we should talk about is having numbers in your resume.
I was literally going to bring this up. It's what is it? Action, results, and quantify or something like that.
Yeah.
Like you need to say an action, what the results are, and then like quantify it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know they said like in almost at least under each description of each job have at least one number. I would argue like for every bullet you should have one number, but basically like Claire said, you just want to quantify, you know, what was your impact, because otherwise people don't really know. I mean, it's more of a qualitative thing than a quantitative thing. People really latch on to numbers. And even if you don't really know the exact number, to kind of estimate it, like if I worked on 50 product listings, I'll say, okay, I optimized 50 plus product listings. Or if I increased product revenue, I'll say I resulted in a 10% increase in product revenue. And those are a lot more tangible to people reading your application and seem a little bit more real.
Shit, I need more numbers on my resume. I don't even know if this is my most recent resume, to be honest.
You have like 4.
I have like 4. I don't know. I need to... This is not my most recent resume. Where would that be? I don't know. Recently, okay, here's the story. We couldn't find my old resume to roast because that was 2 MacBooks ago.
You should have it on Google Drive or something. That's where I put all of mine. And this is a great point too. You guys should keep all of your resumes since the very beginning. And I know that sounds crazy because you're like, it's the exact same thing, just different words and like better wording. But there are things that I totally forget I've done and that I've written on my previous resumes. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I could use this piece here, or I'm applying to like a slightly different job. And like, I could use some of that information I had in a previous resume again. But anyways, what were you saying, Claire?
I want to circle back to that, but my thing is, you know, I lost those resumes pre-college from that MacBook. And then I had my college MacBook, and then I switched to a Lenovo. So now it's just like, I don't know where the fuck anything is. I think it's in the cloud somewhere, but which cloud, I couldn't tell you. They all hold rain, and I don't know which one it's in. So,
Claire.
I'm just like... I couldn't tell you where that is. But circling back to your point about keeping your old resumes, this is so true. People like think that you make one resume and like submit it to all your jobs, but that's wrong. You're supposed to tailor it for each specific role you're applying for.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I asked you too, like if you always knew you wanted to do accounting or if you wanted to do something else, because I was originally a finance major, and I also double majored in cog neuro. And then I kind of was applying to labs and neuroscience, and then I was applying to finance roles for internships. And then on top of that, I realized, I'm actually really passionate about data analytics, so I'm going to pivot myself a little bit. So for a while, I had at least 3 different types of resumes going. One was a finance one was a data analytics one, and one was a neuroscience one for labs at school. And I think that was really helpful. Then compared to just having one, I think especially with AI these days, and like your resume does get read by not a real person, and it is really looking for those keywords that apply to the job description. So for me, if I had more finance words like balance sheets, P&L, receivables, things like that, that kind of helps your resume get picked up a little better compared to maybe a data analytics role where I would say Power BI, Tableau, and some of those skills in there.
100%. I feel like looking up unique action words is also like fun. Like, don't use the same one like a million times on your resume.
Yeah. I think they should all be different. If not, like twice max, right? Like
yeah, like if every single one says achieved, I'm going to stop reading your resume because it's boring.
On that holistic view and formatting, I think that having bold and italics really helps. So for me, each of my places of work are in bold, and then underneath that, each of the titles are in italics, and then everything else is just regular font. And then I think the smallest font you should go is probably size 10, and probably the biggest should be 12.
Oh, yeah. And please, for the love of God, stop using all of these like crazy, colorful, like side panel resumes that you can pull off the internet. Like just black and white is fine. Black and white is fine. It will get you the job. I feel like, and like, unless you're Elle Woods and you're printing it on pink scented paper, then I'll give you the free pass. But like if I just type into Google like resume template,
I hate them. They're really bad, and do not use those. Please just use like a regular standard black and white one. Do like New York Times or like Old Standard or something like font.
Like they have all kinds of ghetto like icons and like people's faces and about me sections. Like just no.
Yeah, I think especially the photo on there is not, I know some people are like, oh, but I want them to know who I am. That's why you have a LinkedIn. Like, that's why you have your profile picture on your LinkedIn, so people can go to that and be like, oh, yeah, they connected with me. I remember who this was. And that's kind of the extra step. Because you have that, you don't really need that on your resume.
Yeah, like your LinkedIn handle should already be on there. And hopefully that shows more about your personality and stuff. And also, I feel like just like having your picture is not great for a resume. It takes away from them just like reading what you've actually accomplished, maybe.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say too is for your LinkedIn link on the top of your profile, you know how sometimes it has those weird letters afterwards because it's like the URL. So what you guys are going to do is if you go to LinkedIn and go to your profile page, click on the little pencil next to the public profile and URL. And then from there, you can customize your URL to not have those like weird letters at the end of your name. So it's just like www.linkedin.com/in/your name. And that's it. And then it looks a little bit cleaner on your resume too. But that's not like super necessary, just kind of just a cleanliness thing.
Agreed. I mean, I think that really, if you follow our tips from us, 2 super successful people, you're going to have a great resume. But
yeah. And there's a lot of like AI chatbots too, like AI, like, what is it called? AI things. I sound like an old person. Okay.
Those little AI things out there that do things for you and are going to take all your jobs.
Those websites that help you cater, you like type in the job description and then you put in your resume and it helps you kind of automate it to have the kind of word usage that they're looking for, is kind of helpful too. And I've heard some people get great results with that, but I wouldn't let it completely change, your resume and the structure, obviously look over it and don't just submit anything blindly. But I think that can be helpful for some people.
Yeah, I forgot those exist, but that's definitely a great tip, especially since AI is getting the first pass at all resumes now.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to say that titles, I think you can stretch a little. Maybe this is a little bit controversial, but for some internships I've had, especially at smaller firms or firms that are going a huge organizational shift, I've had myself come in as a strategy intern, but then midway they change it to like an insights analyst. So then I kind of have a little bit more room with what I want to call it, because just that title has changed and my position isn't exactly what it was originally. Especially this is more common with startups or volunteer positions where maybe you're working under or have a lot of different hats on. So you can kind of pick and choose like a little bit more of an angle that you want to take. Again, don't change this completely, especially if you're in a really well-developed internship program that people know of and know that the title is pretty strict. But if you do work for a startup or something smaller, like for example, for that internship where I started out as strategy and then went into insights, I ended up mixing them together and calling myself like a digital strategy analytics intern. So that also can be useful.
And it's super helpful in like just kind of giving readers more of an idea of what you actually did.
Yeah. The other thing is, I know, Claire, are you fluent in any language?
English.
Okay. So we're not fluent in any other language. Don't you know Spanish though a little bit, or not really?
I could read almost anything in Spanish, but like,
okay.
And someone could talk to me in Spanish, but I just can't really talk back.
Okay. So the first half you've got, but like the second half.
I'm one directionally fluent.
Okay. Don't put that on your resume if you're one directionally fluent. But anyways, so some people do put that on their resume and say, you definitely want to say like how proficient you are. In my skills section, I say how proficient I am in certain skills, just because like, especially with coding, you don't want to put like Python and have them assume you're a really great Python coder if you're just kind of intermediate. So I think that's helpful, but especially what?
I'm going to push back on this one. This might be a hot take. I'll put it on there. Fuck it. I'll learn it before I show up. Like, you know?
Clear, but like all of Python, like that is so difficult. Like for coding languages that are like, you know, really advanced, and I feel like certain advanced topics, there is going to be like a large range of experience.
I mean, I'm pretty good at Java and Python. I don't put that on my resume. Maybe for like coding languages that have like so many levels like that. But like, don't do that for like Microsoft Word, right? Because like,
fair. Yeah,
you can learn that.
yeah. Okay, but I would say like some things like Excel, like I don't know, because there are a lot of tricks like XLOOKUP, VLOOKUP. If you don't really know what you're doing or don't know the shortcuts, like in finance, I will say that's a much bigger deal than if you're doing something like.
Can I just say how much I fuck with XLOOKUP? Like XLOOKUP is like the way better version of VLOOKUP. I only want XLOOKUP.
I heard VLOOKUP's better than XLOOKUP. I've only used VLOOKUP and not XLOOKUP.
No, VLOOKUP can honestly go jump off a cliff. I love XLOOKUP.
Okay. What's the difference again? I totally forget.
VLOOKUP is like all of your data has to be in the left-hand column and like either from like smallest to greatest or like alphabetical A to Z. Mm-hmm. And it's just like doing left columns comparing and then pulling data on the other table, but XLOOKUP goes like all directions. So you can really start getting jazzy and pulling in all kinds of things. I love Excel.
Okay. We can stop the nerd talk from that side of the podcast. But anyways. But yeah, I wanted to bring out languages specifically because there have been, I mean, this is like notorious at specifically banks and like very global companies. If you say you're proficient in a certain language, sometimes they'll have interviewers interview you, and mid-interview, they'll switch to the other language and test if you actually know it or if you're just kind of like fibbing on your resume. And I've heard this happen to multiple people. This is not something like obviously you want to stretch, like Claire said, some of the other skills, maybe you can say like, okay, I'm a little bit better than I actually am, and learn it beforehand. But obviously language is not really one of those things. And sometimes they will actually test you in that. So I would just be a little bit careful on that front.
Yeah. Know your limits.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to our resume talk. I know this was like a little bit more serious than last time. We're going to try to alternate like more fun topics and more like serious tips. But if you guys want us to talk about anything in particular, remember to submit that in the inbox feedback. That is in our link tree. And so just click on that, and then there'll be a listener inbox section, and just fill out that form if you want us to talk about anything in particular, have any stories you want us to share, or any questions about anything else. We really appreciate you guys listening. We love you all, and we'll see you next week.